Alright, if you have not seen the latest dev blog from the Foxhole development team, go watch it right now. I'll wait. I'm going to put the link in the description so you have no excuse not to watch it. Have you seen it? Awesome. Okay, let's move forward. So, battle tanks. Battle tanks are a thing. They are adding technically just medium tanks to the game. I say just, but it's a... This is awesome. This is really cool. So, I mean, I sensed that this was happening, so I kind of alluded to this in my previous video on refined fuel and what it would mean for the game, essentially, that they would be adding heavier vehicles, essentially. And no, they have also alluded that there's more stuff coming to patch 0.2, and that they would in fact like to add more vehicles to the game as well, so including tank destroyers, self-propelled guns, and yeah, lots of other vehicles essentially. But enough about that. Let's talk about battle tanks. Now, they have revealed 2 battle tanks being added to the game, one for the Colonials and one for the Wardens. Let's talk about the Colonials battle tank first. The Colonial battle tank is called the Lance 36. And it really looks really cool, I have to say. I mean, when I initially saw it, and when the, what is it, I forgot his name, described it, his inspiration for it, I could see it right there, so. It is literally a, what is it, a British Cromwell medium tank with kind of like the hull of a Russian KV tank, both tanks from World War II. It is really cool, I have to say. And I'm saying this as a dedicated, loyal Warden officer of over a year. So I say this as a dedicated Warden. The Colonial battle tank looks cool. If that is insubordination, my apologies. But it looks really cool. Going into more shots of it, it is just a little bit bigger than the light tank, but it is still quite a monstrous vehicle, to say the least. We have a little shot of it with, what is it, 2 light tanks and an AC right next to it. It looks really cool. Moving on, the Warden battle tank, the Flood Mark 1, it's a really good design as well. I feel that it, I have to say, I feel a little biased to the Colonial battle tank. I say this as a loyal Warden officer, of course, but I do feel like the Colonial battle tank just has the better design. But the Warden battle tank looks really cool. It looks really cool. It looks really nice. Clearly, well, it's hard to point down the inspiration for it, so I was thinking they would go more with the, I guess, French designs or so, seeing how the, what's it, the Warden light tank has more of a French aesthetic to it or so, but it's still a very unique and interesting design or so that I have to appreciate. I sense it has a little bit of the Russian T-28 to it in terms of the whole, so I can't really pin down my thoughts on the turret section or so. Maybe the gun section or so has the... I mean, I think the developer in the dev blog said it best, where it was borderlines to a kind of like a land ship, so like a land battleship like the Russians would make. So I guess maybe some inspiration with the T-35 or so, like the super heavy, though lightly armored Russian tank that the Soviet Union made, essentially, during the inner periods before World War II. But it's still a very nice design, I have to say. So I really like the back of it. So the back looks really nice. So I think, yeah, I believe he also said that the inspiration for, I guess, the back of the turret and the back of the tank or so had a lot of inspiration from the Tiger 1 or so, the Panzer 6. And I can actually see quite a bit of that there. So it is a really nice looking tank, I have to say. It looks really good in that aspect. I feel a little biased. Actually, no. Actually, looking more into it and explaining more of it has made me appreciate it a little bit more. So I do feel that the Warden battle tank design is actually really good. I feel that it would have been better if it was upscaled and this was like the large tank and so, because I'm getting this heavy tank land ship vibe from it, while with the Colonial tank I'm getting a more medium tank design essentially. So because of its, I guess because of its Cromwell like aspects to it. So overall, I think this should have been like a heavy tank, and we should get like something in between the Warden light tank and this. So, as I think this is a better, heavier tank design, I guess. But that's just my opinion. But overall, it is a really good design. And yeah, no, the turret section is much larger than the light tank, so it still has the kind of the same aesthetic in terms of the turret like front essentially. Though it has a much larger cannon, so it still has like that little gunnery hatch there. It's very nice. And here's a picture of it with yeah, with 2 light tanks and an AC. No, it really does look really cool. I do feel like they should have just upscaled it, really. I can't get that feeling out of my head, so, well, maybe just give it a little bigger of a gun, I guess. So I know that it's a medium tank, I guess, and it's still, the gun is much larger than the light tank's cannon. But I feel like just giving it a longer cannon or so, or maybe extending the hole a little bit more or so, will just make it look a little cooler, in my opinion. But that's just me. So I still think they did a wonderful job with both battle tanks. And here's another picture, so with like a size comparison between the light tanks, the battle tanks, and a individual person. Now, I want to go into the mechanics of the actual battle tanks very briefly, so I'm gonna switch to, I guess, I'll go with the Warden battle tank picture. So, if you look at it, you probably already noticed it. It has 5 crew slots, and it has 2 armaments, essentially. We have a main cannon, like we had on the light tank, which is actually larger. I think the light tanks had like 45mm cannons, so this has they both have 75mm cannons, which I guess will theoretically do twice as much damage, so theoretically. But the biggest thing is that it has a 50 caliber machine gun in the front, as well as manned by another person, which is really nice. So it's a 50 cal, so it is actually going to be just as powerful as the half-tracks 50 caliber, though it won't have the same arc of fire, so it'll be slightly more limited than the half-tracks arc of fire, but it will still have the same amount of damage, which will be very interesting. But going on to the crew slots, we have 5 crew slots. We have the standard commander seat with the commander hatch. We have the gunner for the main cannon. We have the driver for the entire tank. We also have these 2 other seats. The first one, as I'm going to cover, is like the machine gunner. He basically just covers the 50 cal. So. But the interesting one is the engineer. So the engineering spot, what is that all about? So the engineer has multiple different tasks. He reloads the gun. So I don't remember specifically if it was for both the main cannon and the 50 cal or just the main cannon, but I'm just going to definitely say that he reloads the cannon. Oh, well, okay, so we're going to talk about the second feature later on or so, and you understand why. But his third function is that he actually can repair the tank while being inside the tank. they did not explicitly say how this is going to work, because in order to repair vehicles you need BMATs, so I'm assuming that you're going to either have to have BMATs on your person, or you are going to have BMATs inside the actual vehicle itself. I'm not sure what the rate is going to be. I'm assuming that it's going to be probably slower than actually repairing it from outside the vehicle. The engineer is going to be very vital to the overall survival of the tank, simply because of the fact that, well, okay, before I go more into the engineer, let's move on to the second biggest feature that they've talked about, which is different ammunition types. So, there are going to be three, actually, they said that there are going to be 4 different ammunition types. There's going to be the standard rounds that you already have, but then there are going to be 3 different rounds that each have a specialty target of interest. You're going to have armored piercing rounds, high explosive, and shrapnel. So armored piercing, self-explanatory, it's going to be used specifically to deal with heavier vehicles. I'm not sure if they're making like a drop off on it, so like maybe it's heavily effective against other battle tanks and light tanks, but it is not really effective against armored cars, or maybe even half tracks or so, or trucks. I'm not sure there's going to be a type of decreasing value when it comes to that. You have high explosive, which is going to be the anti-structure shell, essentially. So when you're dealing with pillboxes, gun nests, so you're going to have to use, well, you're not going to have to use high explosives, but they're going to be the go-to shell for those heavier fortifications. And then you're going to have shrapnel, which is a basic anti-personnel shell, essentially. And apparently it works kind of, not like a shotgun per se, but more of like a, I guess a real-life grenade. Well, it's not the explosive that kills you, but more of like all the fragments going around or so. So it's going to be like, what is it? I guess technically like a grenade launcher, except for it's going to detonate immediately on impact. My criticism on this is simply because of the fact that I see what they're trying to go for. They're trying to go for, like, you can either get something that's really good at taking out tanks, something that's really good at taking out structures, something that's really good against infantry, or you can go for the standard shell that is good at doing basically everything. So these are more specialized rounds, so it says right at the top left corner. I see what they're doing with that, but I feel that basically, I think high explosive and shrapnel should really be in the same boat, per se, in the sense that they're basically the same thing. I mean, high explosive rounds are essentially used in real life just to kill infantry and, what is it, soft targets, concrete, but, well, I guess it depends on how concrete it is. They might just use a higher explosive shell, I guess, basically. But, essentially, I feel like high explosive and shrapnel should be just wrapped into the same boat, or the same box, simply because of the fact that high explosive should theoretically be just as effective at killing infantry as shrapnel. Like, maybe shrapnel should, well, I guess both of them, all 3 of them, actually all 4 of them, will kill an infantryman with 1 shot. And that technically shrapnel is just, I guess, for taking out large groups of infantry, I suppose, which is really useful. So I can see that. So because I guess the concept of the shrapnel round more lies in real life with the high explosive round, where you just have a high explosive round that lands, either the concussion of the explosion kills infantry, or the surrounding debris or the shrapnel from the shell kills them, I guess. So, like, when I initially I mean, I could be wrong about this. It could instead be kind of like a, was it a canister shot? Essentially was just like a large, basically a high velocity, long range shotgun, which would be kind of cool. I could see that as being pretty cool, as it just, and in fact, I think that might be what it is. I'm hoping that's what it is. It could be one or the other, so I don't think they specifically said which one it is. I'm kind of hoping that's just like a canister shell where it essentially just shoots out just like a shotgun, except for it does way more damage, because this is a 75mm shell over your buckshot and a shotgun, so that would be kind of cool. Just something that you could use to just wipe out a bunch of infantry. Granted, in that shotgun capacity, I don't think it would be as effective against infantry. Not in the sense that it wouldn't do enough damage, it's just that the range factor would mean that if you're in range to do significant damage to infantry, most likely you can get RPG'd and HE'd and AT rifled in the face quite easily. So that would be kind of a negative side effect of the shrapnel round, which would mean that most likely people would probably just go with the high explosive or the armored piercing. I feel like because it's another mechanic. Oh, so going back to the engineer, so I digress a lot. The engineer has the ability to switch between these shells, and overall in the system that they have in place, that I guess they told us about, is the fact that the light tank can only have one type of shell, essentially. So you have to specialize it in one category. Either it can be a jack of all trades, or it can be specialized against taking out armor, taking out buildings, or taking out infantry. It can only do one of those 4 tasks. While the battle tank has the option of going with 2 of these shells, or at a maximum of 3 if you get with your machine gun, essentially. Because the way they set it up, from what I can tell, is the fact that they essentially probably have 4 slots for the battle tank. 1 is going to be used for the fuel, and then 3 are used for the ammunition, basically, the 50 cal and the main gun. So if you wanted to, you could opt out of the 50 cal ammunition and then carry 3 different specialized tank rounds. And from what I can tell, I feel that I guess probably the specialized rounds would be the best if you get them in greater quantities. I feel that possibly if you can only get 2, you'd probably want to go with the armored piercing and then probably the standard round, depending on how much of a damage increase the high explosive gives you. Because if the high explosive increases the standard round's effective damage against buildings by maybe 50%, so 25%, then that'll be significant. But if it's only like by 10 or 15%, I don't think it would be worth it. So on top of the fact that because we don't know, because it's saying that it's a high yield charge, but it's not saying if it has significant blast radius or so. Because now you go into the fact of which shells will you need the most, because I think everyone's going to agree that having armored piercing is going to be a must-have, just because of the fact that if you run into any tanks or so, especially main battle tanks, why can't they just call them medium tanks or so? Anywho, so I feel like everyone's going to go with the armored piercing shells or so, just because of the fact that they will give them a direct edge when coming across other vehicles or so, which is almost a necessity, essentially. But it comes down to what that second or possibly third shell is going to be, because if you just have a 50 cal, which is probably more cost effective with going against infantry and soft structures like foxholes and light pillboxes, then you only have one more shell that you can use. So you can either, it might be best to go with the high explosive in that opinion, just because of the fact that then you'd be able to take out both vehicles and structures with ease. The jack of all trade would be nice if materials are low and you just want to get something that can cover all your bases. But I feel that with the 50 cal or so, it would be better to instead utilize the main gun for vehicles and structures, and to allow the 50 cal to deal with infantry as well as, those softer fortifications, just because it would be less taxing logistically. Simply because of the fact that you would in fact be able to get more out of the resources from just hitting people with a 50 cal machine gun than to make specialized shrapnel rounds or to use standard rounds for that. So I feel like the meta or so for the battle tank is going to be probably to have on-piercing, high explosive, and then to use 50 cals for everything that can't be cost effectively used for it or can't be dealt with the 50 cal. So that is very interesting. I mean, it's really situational. I'm sure that some people will be able to more utilize with more coordination specialized rounds, I guess. Because I don't really feel that there's just a need for the shrapnel round. I feel that it can be covered with a 50 cal essentially. As the 50 cal can probably take out more infantry than the shrapnel round, unless the shrapnel round is either a giant shotgun or just this giant grenade launcher that just spreads all this shrapnel everywhere basically, that just kills infantry left and right. But we'll have to see, Now those are the main aspects that they went over in the Devstream. They said that there are more features coming out in .2 that they're going to be probably going over next week. And they've stated that the release date is going to be December 12th, but this is the kicker. The thing about it is that with all of the different releases for updates, it is all dependent on the war, the current war. As the devs will not end a war, they will not just let a war, they won't just cancel a war in order to update the game or so, and they can't update the game while war is in place, at least not to my knowledge or so. They might have changed it. But if this is still the case, what this means is that unless the war is over before the 12th or on the 12th, we will not see this update until the war ends, essentially. Now, of course, there's still another 11 days or so until the war, until the update comes out or so, until its release date, basically. And any time added on until the update actually releases gives them more time to, I guess, add more little features or so, because apparently there are more things that they're adding to, you know, the update essentially, which is always good, so to give them more time. So I have a full amount of respect for the developers or so and their ability to listen to the community and to actually keep updates coming or so, basically every month or every other month. So I have full respect and confidence in the devs, basically. But I really want to see the update. That's the biggest thing. I really want to see the update in 11 days. So my Warden comments, we need to stomp out this Colonial rebellion shortly and decisively so we can see this update in 11 days. We cannot allow for them to stand between us and the battle tanks. Granted, of course, it will probably be at least another week before we probably see a single battle tank, because they've also talked about the fact that it is going to require so much time to make a single battle tank. It takes like half a day to get a bloody blueprint for a light tank, so I can only imagine it's going to take probably a bloody full day. So not only is it going to take forever to get the battle tank, but once we unlock it, it's gonna... This is speculative, so we haven't seen anything, and I'll confirm it when the Devstream comes up, but it could possibly take an entire day to have a blueprint finished for a battle tank. They've said that this is going to be like the end game tank. I mean, this is the end game tank right now. I'm hoping that we get something along the lines of the Mouse, or even better, the Raditz. So if you know what those tanks are, you know what I'm talking about, obviously. But no, it is going to take a ridiculously long time to get battle tanks out when the actual update comes out, essentially. So I am really looking forward to getting my hands on some of them and seeing what they do to the overall game, because it's obvious that they're going to wipe the floor with medium tanks, and without, I guess, any like Toad AT guns or so, you're still going to be relying on RPGs essentially to deal with these things, or just praying that you can like swarm a battle tank or so, kind of like that scene in Fury essentially. Anyway, enough with me ranting on. Share your reactions to this in the comments section. Like I said before, subscribe to the Foxhole official YouTube channel. And as always, take care. I will see you guys next time.